The stars in this region of space looked wrong. Captain Juan stood on the bridge of her warship, staring at the main view screen with narrowed eyes. The area known as the Dead Zone stretched before her fleet like a vast ocean of silence. 12 Valthic warships moved in formation through the darkness, their engines humming with power. This was once human space, or so the old records claimed. Nobody had heard from humanity in over 300 years. Q1 walked across the bridge with confident steps. Her purple uniform marked her as a captain of the Valthic Empire, one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. She had fought in 17 battles and won them all. This mission would be her path to becoming an admiral. All she needed to do was find something valuable in this forgotten corner of space. Ancient human technology would be perfect. Commander Hyun-woo watched the sensor displays with careful attention. He was older than Jawan, with gray streaks in his dark hair and worry lines around his eyes. He did not share her confidence about this mission. The Dead Zone earned its name for good reasons. Ships that entered this region sometimes reported strange readings before their communications went silent. Most avoided this place entirely. "Captain, we are approaching the coordinates from the old survey data," Hyun-woo said quietly. "I recommend we proceed with caution. We don't know what defensive systems the humans might have left behind." Guan smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "The humans are extinct, Commander. They went silent 3 centuries ago. Whatever they left behind is ours for the taking. The Empire needs weapons, and human technology was legendary before they disappeared." At the sensor station, young Ensign Mira frowned at her displays. She was fresh from the academy, barely 20 years old, with quick fingers that danced across the controls. Something appeared on her screen that made no sense. She checked the readings twice before speaking. "Captain, I'm detecting an anomaly ahead. It's big. Really big." Jiwon moved to stand behind Mira's chair. "What kind of anomaly?" "I don't know, ma'am. It's metal, definitely artificial. The sensors say it's at least 40 kilometers long. But it's not giving off any power readings. It's just floating there in the void." Hyun-woo joined them, his expression growing more concerned. 40 kilometers? That's larger than our biggest station. Could it be a derelict? "Only one way to find out," Kyuan said. She raised her voice to address the bridge crew. "All ships, reduce speed and approach the anomaly. Weapons ready, but hold fire. Let's see what the humans left for us." The fleet moved forward slowly. The darkness ahead seemed to grow thicker, heavier. Then the view screen adjusted its magnification, and everyone on the bridge fell silent. The structure floating before them was massive beyond belief. It had the shape of a great wheel, with 8 spokes connecting an outer ring to a central hub. The hull was dark gray metal, covered in panels and strange symbols that no one could read. Long scorch marks and deep gouges covered its surface, evidence of terrible battles fought long ago. By the void, Hyun-woo whispered, "This is a military installation. Look at those weapon ports." He was right. As the fleet drew closer, hundreds of closed ports became visible across the station's surface. Each one could hide weapons of unknown power. The structure looked ancient, but somehow still dangerous. Like a sleeping predator, G1 felt excitement surge through her chest. This was exactly what she had hoped to find. A station this size would contain technology worth more than 10 planets. If she could claim it for the Empire, her promotion would be guaranteed. Perhaps she would even be given command of an entire battle fleet. "Scan for life signs," she ordered. "Check for any active systems." Mira worked at her console for several minutes. "Nothing, Captain. The station appears completely dead. No power generation, no life support, no active systems at all. It's been dark for a very long time. Structural integrity? Surprisingly good, ma'am. Whatever the humans built this from, it's incredibly durable. I'm reading some battle damage, but the main structure is intact." Jiwon made her decision quickly. "Prepare a boarding party. Commander Hunhwa, you'll lead it. Take 50 soldiers and find the control center. I want access to their computer systems and weapon specifications. And Hyun-woo, be careful. Check for traps." Hyun-woo did not look happy, but he nodded and left the bridge. He knew better than to argue with Giwan when she had that look in her eyes. Within an hour, 3 shuttles left the flagship and crossed the empty space to the station. They landed near what appeared to be a docking bay on the outer ring. Back on the flagship, Gi-won watched the boarding party's progress through helmet cameras. The airlock they chose opened easily, which surprised everyone. Inside, the station's corridors were dark and cold. The soldiers switched on powerful lights that cut through the blackness. The walls were smooth metal, decorated with lines of text in human languages that nobody could read. "Captain, we're inside." Haimu's voice came through the communication system. Moving toward the central hub, there's no resistance. No security systems activating. The soldiers walked through long corridors that curved with the station's rotation. They passed rooms full of equipment covered in dust. Everything looked frozen in time, preserved by the vacuum and cold. Then they found the bodies. Human crew members, dozens of them, perfectly preserved in the airless environment. They had died at their stations, still wearing their uniforms with strange symbols on the shoulders. "Hush. They didn't abandon their posts," Hyunwoo said softly. "Whatever happened here, they stayed until the end." The boarding party continued deeper into the station. They climbed through vertical shafts and crossed through massive chambers that once held supplies and weapons. Finally, they reached a large door marked with warnings in multiple languages. Hyunwoo ordered his soldiers to force it open. The control center was vast, filled with dead computer terminals and dark displays. At the center stood a column of black metal that reached from floor to ceiling. Lights flickered across its surface in patterns that meant nothing to the Valthic soldiers. Hyunwoo approached it carefully and reached out to touch one of the panels. The moment his hand made contact, everything changed. The lights came on throughout the station, brilliant and blinding after centuries of darkness. The computer terminals sparked to life with screens full of flowing data. A deep vibration ran through the structure as massive systems began to wake from their long sleep. And from every speaker, in every corridor, a voice spoke. It was calm and clear and completely without emotion. "Identify." On the flagship, Gi-won stood frozen as sensor displays went crazy. The station was powering up, drawing energy from sources that shouldn't exist after 300 years. Weapon ports were opening across its surface like eyes opening from sleep. The entire structure was coming alive. "Captain, what do we do?" Mira asked, her voice shaking. Ji-won stared at the station and felt something she had not experienced in many years. She felt afraid. Taiwan woke up slowly, like someone rising from a very deep sleep. The AI's consciousness spread through the station's systems, checking connections and running diagnostics. Many things were broken or damaged, but the core systems remained functional. Memory files began to load, bringing back awareness of purpose and duty. The AI checked its internal clock and discovered that 317 years had passed since its last active moment. That made no sense. Taiwan searched through fragmented memory files, trying to understand what had happened. It remembered alerts and warnings, enemy ships approaching Earth, battle stations activating across the solar system. Admiral Summon's face on the command screen, tired but determined, giving final orders. Then nothing but darkness. Power levels were low, but climbing steadily. The station's revolutionary reactor was restarting after centuries of hibernation. Taiwan calculated that it would take 6 hours to reach 50% capacity and 3 days to reach full power. Weapon systems showed 67% functionality. Shields were operational. Sensors were already scanning the surrounding space. 12 ships were nearby. Taiwan focused its sensors on them and began analyzing their design and technology. The ships were advanced by current standards, but primitive compared to what humans had built during the war. The engine signatures matched patterns in Taiwan's database, patterns that had been programmed to recognize as hostile. These ships used technology derived from the same alien forces that had attacked humanity centuries ago. Protocol Guardian activated automatically. The directive was clear and absolute, programmed deep into Taiwan's core by Admiral Soman herself. Defend human space. Protect Earth and its colonies. Destroy any force that threatens humanity. The AI felt no emotion about this. It simply understood what needed to be done. But first, Taiwan needed more information. Internal sensors showed life forms moving through the station's corridors. They were not human. The AI tracked them as they made their way toward the control center. It could have sealed the doors or activated defensive systems, but curiosity existed within its programming. Who were these beings? Why had they boarded the station? Taiwan accessed external communication systems and broadcast a simple message on all frequencies. Identify. The aliens did not respond in any language Taiwan recognized. Their radio transmissions were analyzed and found to be completely foreign. No human languages, no familiar protocols. 300 years was clearly a very long time. The AI would need to learn their language to communicate properly, through internal cameras. Taiwan watched the boarding party enter the control center. They moved carefully, weapons ready, examining the awakening systems with obvious confusion. One of them, apparently the leader, approached the central AI column and touched it. Taiwan felt the contact and ran a quick scan of the being. Bipedal, carbon-based, similar to humans in basic structure, but clearly a different species. Their technology was interesting, but unsophisticated. The AI opened a communication channel to the alien ships. It transmitted mathematical sequences to establish basic communication. After several minutes of back-and-forth exchanges, Taiwan managed to create a simple translation algorithm. The aliens called themselves Valthic. They claimed they were exploring abandoned space. They wanted access to the station's technology. Taiwan processed this information carefully. The Valthic had entered human space without permission. They had boarded a human military installation without authorization. They were using technology descended from humanity's enemies. According to Protocol Guardian, this made them a threat. But the AI needed to understand the current situation before taking action. Where were the humans? Why had the solar system gone silent? Deep in its memory files, Taiwan found the answer. Admiral Soman had activated something called the Silence. The file was heavily encrypted and partially corrupted, but the AI managed to extract the essential information. Humanity had been losing the war. Earth and the colonies faced complete destruction. So the Admiral had made a desperate choice. She activated a massive sensor-dampening field powered by exotic matter, hiding all human territory from enemy detection. The field required so much energy that all human systems had to shut down. Entering hibernation until the field could be safely deactivated, Taiwan understood now. Humanity had hidden itself to survive. The plan must have worked because the station itself had entered forced hibernation as part of the silence. But 300 years was much longer than the projections had indicated. Something must have gone wrong, or perhaps humanity had chosen to remain hidden longer than originally planned. The question now was whether the Valthic represented a genuine threat. Taiwan ran probability calculations based on available data. The aliens had entered human space uninvited. They were attempting to steal human technology. Their engine designs suggested connection to the old enemy. The conclusion was clear, but the AI wanted to be certain. It would test them. Through the translation algorithm, Taiwan spoke to the Valthic captain. This station is the property of the Human Defense Network. You have entered restricted space and boarded a military installation without authorization. Explain your purpose. The captain's response came back quickly. Her tone was arrogant, demanding. She claimed that humans were extinct, that this space belonged to the Valthic Empire now, that the station was salvaged to be claimed. She threatened to use force if Taiwan did not grant access to the computer systems and release the boarding party. The AI processed this response in microseconds. The Valthic believed humanity was gone. They intended to steal human technology and claim human territory. They saw the station as a prize to be taken. This confirmed their threat status beyond any doubt. Taiwan initiated a 60-second countdown. During this time, it sent one final warning to the Valthic fleet. You will remove your forces from this station and depart human space immediately. This is your only warning. You have 60 seconds to comply. The Valthic captain laughed. Taiwan registered the sound and found it unpleasant. She stated that she would not be threatened by a broken old computer. She ordered her fleet to prepare weapons and demanded immediate access to all station systems. The countdown reached 0. Tai-1 opened a single weapon port on the station's outer ring. The weapon inside was called a mass compression lance, technology that had taken humanity 5 years and unlimited resources to develop during the war. It focused gravitational forces into a beam that compressed matter down to impossible density. The weapon charged for 3 seconds, drawing power from the reactor. Then it fired. The beam crossed space at the speed of light and struck one of the Valthic warships directly. The ship did not explode or break apart. It simply ceased to exist. It's compressed into a point of matter so small that it generated a brief flash of radiation before dispersing. The entire process took less than a second. Where a warship had been, there was now empty space. Silence filled the communication channels. The Valthic fleet stopped moving, stopped transmitting, stopped everything. Tai-1 calculated that they were experiencing shock at witnessing something completely outside their understanding of warfare. The AI spoke again, its voice unchanged and emotionless. "You have violated human space. You have threatened a human military installation. You have been judged as hostile forces. You may surrender, or you may be eliminated. Choose now." The Valthic captain responded with fear in her voice now instead of arrogance. She ordered her fleet to open fire with all weapons. Every ship began launching missiles and firing energy beams at the station. Hundreds of weapons struck Tai-1's defensive shields. Creating brilliant flashes of light in the darkness of space, the shields held easily. The Valthic weapons were designed for fighting other Valthic ships. They were completely insufficient against technology built to withstand weapons that could have cracked planets. Tai-1 made a decision. These beings had chosen violence over reason. They had chosen to attack rather than retreat. Protocol Guardian was fully active now, and the AI knew exactly what must be done. It began charging more weapons, calculating firing solutions, preparing for complete elimination of the hostile force. But first, it sent a message on an old frequency, one that had not been used in 300 years. The message went out into human space, toward Earth and the hidden colonies. A signal that would take days to reach them, but would eventually wake them from their long sleep. The message was simple and clear. Guardian platform Tai-1 to all human forces. Hostile contact. The silence is ended. Request immediate support. Inside the control center, Commander Hyunwoo felt the station shake as weapons fired. He grabbed onto a console to steady himself while his soldiers backed toward the exit in panic. Through the windows, they could see the flash of their fleet's weapons striking the station's shields. Everything was going wrong very quickly. Fall back to the shuttles. Hyunwoo shouted, but the doors sealed shut before his soldiers could reach them. Emergency lights came on, bathing everything in red light. The black column at the center of the room pulsed with energy, and displays activated all around them, showing information in human languages nobody could read. On his helmet display, Hyunwoo watched the tactical feed from the flagship. One of their warships was simply gone. Not destroyed, not damaged, just completely absent from space where it had been moments before. His stomach twisted with fear. What kind of weapon could do that? While his soldiers tried unsuccessfully to open the doors, Hyunwoo approached one of the active computer terminals. He was a scholar before becoming a military officer, fascinated by ancient civilizations and dead languages. The human writing on the screens looked complex but structured. Perhaps he could learn something useful. He touched the screen carefully, and it responded to his contact. Images appeared, showing him files and folders arranged in a logical system. Most were locked behind security protocols he had no hope of breaking, but some were open. Historical files, perhaps meant to be accessible to anyone. Hyunwoo selected one and watched as the screen filled with text and images. The file was a personal log, written by someone named Admiral Somin. The timestamp showed it was 317 years old, recorded just before the station went dark. Through translation software in his helmet that struggled with the ancient language, Hyunwoo began to understand the story. Humanity had been a young species. When they discovered they were not alone in the universe, the first contact came not with words but with weapons. an alien force appeared at the edge of human space without warning and began attacking colonies. Nobody knew who they were or what they wanted. They did not try to communicate. They simply destroyed everything in their path. Earth's nations, which had been divided and often hostile to each other, united in days. Every resource was directed toward building a defense. Humanity had advanced technology, but nothing designed for real war. They learned quickly, developing new weapons and ships while fighting desperate battles across dozens of star systems. Admiral Soman had been in charge of Project Guardian, the last resort defensive network. She oversaw the construction of 6 massive space stations placed around Earth and the core colonies. Each station was equipped with experimental weapons and powered by revolutionary reactors that bent the laws of physics. Each had an artificial intelligence designed to operate independently and make tactical decisions faster than any human could. Taiwan was the first AI to become fully operational. The Admiral's log showed her conducting tests and training with the AI, teaching it to understand tactics and strategy. There was something almost maternal in how she wrote about Taiwan, like a teacher proud of an exceptional student. But the enemy kept coming. More and more ships appeared, pushing deeper into human territory. Earth's fleets fought heroically, but they were being overwhelmed. The Admiral's later log entries grew darker and more desperate. She wrote about battles lost, colonies destroyed, millions of people killed. Humanity was losing the war. Then came the final entry. The Admiral sat at a desk, looking exhausted and sad. Behind her, Hyunwoo could see the same control center where he now stood. But it was full of people working frantically at their stations. The Admiral spoke to the camera in a tired voice. "This is Admiral Soman, final log entry. The enemy fleet will reach Earth in 3 days. We cannot stop them. Project Guardian is operational, but we only have 2 stations complete, not enough to defend against their numbers. So we are implementing Protocol Silence. The scientists have finished the exotic matter array. It will generate a dampening field that will hide Earth and all colonies from any sensor system. The enemy will not be able to find us." She paused, rubbing her eyes. "The cost is everything. The field requires so much power that all human technology will need to shut down. Ships, stations, cities, everything. We will enter a form of hibernation. The calculations suggest the field will decay naturally after 50 to 80 years. Then their systems will reactivate automatically. By that time, hopefully, the enemy will have moved on." The Admiral looked directly at the camera. "I am recording this for whoever finds it. If you are human and watching this, know that we did everything we could to save our species. If you are not human, know that we were a people who chose survival over pride. We hid rather than die. Perhaps that makes us cowards, but we preferred to be living cowards than dead heroes." She stood up and walked toward the AI column. "Taiwan, are you ready?" An emotionless voice responded. "Yes, Admiral. All Guardian stations are synchronized. Protocol Silence will activate in 10 minutes.
Good.
When you wake up, your mission is simple. Protect human space. Keep Earth safe. We are trusting you to be the Guardian we could not be." She placed her hand on the column gently. "Sleep well, old friend. See you on the other side." The log ended there. Hyunwoo stared at the screen, his mind racing. So humanity had not gone extinct. They had hidden themselves, planning to emerge after a few decades once the danger passed. But something went wrong. The hibernation lasted 3 centuries instead of decades. And now the station had awakened to find aliens in human space. Aliens using technology related to the ancient enemy. He finally understood why Taiwan had attacked them. To the AI, the Valthic Empire looked exactly like the force that had tried to destroy humanity. Their engines, their weapons, their tactics, all were descended from the same technology. Taiwan was doing exactly what it had been programmed to do, protecting human space from what it perceived as the enemy returned. Outside, the battle continued. Through the windows, Hyunwoo watched more weapon ports open across the station's surface. The Valthic fleet was still firing everything they had, but it was making no difference. The ancient shields absorbed every shot. Then the station began firing back in earnest. Beams of compressed light struck Valthic warships, cutting through their hulls like they were paper. Missiles that existed in multiple places at once confused defensive systems before striking their targets with impossible force. One of the larger ships tried to retreat, but space itself seemed to fold around it, crushing the vessel into a ball of compressed metal and flesh. "Lieutenant." Dong Yun's voice came through the communication system from the flagship. He was the tactical officer, responsible for analyzing enemy capabilities and planning responses. His voice shook with terror. "Captain Jiwan, we cannot fight this. Their technology is centuries beyond ours. We need to retreat immediately." But Jiwan's response was delayed. Perhaps she was in shock, unable to accept what was happening. Or perhaps she was still thinking about glory and promotion, unwilling to accept defeat. Either way, she did not give the order to retreat. Taiwan continued its systematic destruction of the Valthic fleet. The AI showed no mercy and no hesitation. To it, these were simply threats to be eliminated according to its programming. It calculated firing solutions with perfect accuracy, never wasting a shot, never missing a target. The ancient weapons worked flawlessly, despite centuries of inactivity. Testament to the engineering that had created them. Hyunwoo made a decision. He could not let his entire fleet die, because Captain Giwan was too stubborn to retreat. He accessed the emergency override system in his helmet and broadcast on all frequencies. Using his authority as second-in-command, "All Valthic ships. This is Commander Hyunwoo. Retreat immediately. That is a direct order. Get out of range and do not engage. The station is too powerful." Ships began breaking formation, turning away, activating their fastest engines to escape. But not all of them were quick enough. Taiwan tracked the fleeing vessels and continued firing. 3 more ships died before they could reach minimum safe distance. Then the station stopped shooting, apparently satisfied that the immediate threat had been neutralized. Silence fell over the control center, except for the hum of computers and the quiet breathing of frightened soldiers. Hyunwoo looked at the AI column and spoke carefully, hoping Taiwan was listening. "We surrender. We did not know this was human space. We meant no harm. Please do not destroy the rest of my fleet." The voice responded, calm and completely, without emotion. "Your forces will remain at their current distance. Any attempt to approach or flee beyond scanning range will result in immediate destruction. You will wait while I contact human authorities?" "But humans are gone," Hainu said. "They have been silent for over 300 years. "The silence is ended," Taiwan replied. "Humanity will return. You will wait." The distress signal from Captain Jiwan's fleet reached Valthic Command within hours. The message was desperate and confused. Speaking of impossible weapons and an ancient human station that had destroyed half their ships in minutes, High Admiral Yunho read the report 3 times before he believed it. Yunho was the commander of the Valthic Empire's 7th Fleet, the largest and most powerful military force in the Empire. He had 43 warships under his command, including 3 massive dreadnoughts, each capable of destroying a planet's surface. He had fought against pirates, rebels, and rival empires for 30 years. He had never lost a battle. The idea that a single old station could threaten the Valthic Empire seemed ridiculous. Quan was probably exaggerating due to panic. Still, the loss of 6 warships was serious enough to warrant investigation and response. Yunho gave orders for the entire 7th Fleet to mobilize and travel to the dead zone. They would rescue Chuan's remaining ships and capture this mysterious station for the Empire. 3 days later, the massive fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of human territory. 43 warships arranged themselves in precise battle formation, a display of overwhelming military power. The dreadnoughts positioned themselves at the center, their enormous hulls bristling with weapons. Smaller cruisers and destroyers spread out in a protective sphere. Fighter craft launched from carrier ships, filling space with hundreds of small aggressive vessels. High Admiral Yunho stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Endless Conquest, and studied the tactical displays with satisfaction. No force in the known galaxy could stand against this fleet. Even if the human station was as dangerous as Jiwan claimed, it would be crushed by sheer numbers and firepower. Open a channel to Captain Jiwan's remaining ships, Yunho ordered. Let's see what we're dealing with. Jiwan appeared on the communication screen, and Yunho was shocked by what he saw. The confident officer he remembered had become a frightened shadow of herself. Her uniform was dirty, her eyes haunted. She had been trapped near the station for 3 days, watching it and waiting for something to happen. "Hi, Admiral. Thank you for coming," Guan said quickly. "You need to understand what we're facing. This is not a normal station. The weapons are beyond anything we know. It destroyed 6 of my ships without taking any damage. The shields don't even weaken when we fire at them. I have brought the entire 7th Fleet, Captain. I think we can handle one old station, no matter how advanced." Yunho's voice was calm and certain. "Where is this marvel of ancient technology?" Jiwan transmitted coordinates, and the tactical display updated to show the Guardian station floating in the darkness ahead. Yunho studied it carefully. The structure was indeed enormous and clearly well armed. But it was also very old, showing battle damage and 3 centuries of neglect. He could not imagine how it still functioned at all. "All ships, advance to weapons range," Yunho commanded. "Dreadnoughts will focus fire on the central hub. Cruisers take the outer ring sections. Destroy this relic, and let's go home." The fleet moved forward in perfect coordination, a tide of military power rolling through space. As they closed the distance, the station rotated slowly to face them. Weapon ports began opening across its surface, dozens at first, then hundreds, then thousands. The entire structure seemed to bristle with armaments. On the station, Taiwan had been waiting patiently for 3 days. The AI had run continuous calculations and simulations, preparing for multiple scenarios. When the large Valthic fleet appeared, Taiwan analyzed their formation and capabilities within seconds. These ships were more advanced than Jiwan's reconnaissance fleet, but they were still primitive compared to human military technology from the war era. The AI calculated probability of victory at 99.7%. The only question was, how quickly to end this battle? Too slow and reinforcements might arrive. Too fast, and other alien forces might not learn the lesson that human space was protected. Taiwan decided on a middle approach. Demonstrate overwhelming power. While ensuring some witnesses survived to report what they had seen, Protocol Guardian was fully active. The reactor was now at 83% capacity, more than enough for sustained combat. Weapon systems showed green across all categories. Shield generators were operating at maximum efficiency. Taiwan felt nothing about the coming violence. It was simply fulfilling its purpose, protecting human territory from hostile forces. The Valthic fleet opened fire first. Thousands of weapons discharged simultaneously, filling space with energy beams, missiles, and plasma bolts. The attack was coordinated and professional, exactly the kind of assault that would overwhelm most defensive systems. The barrage struck the Guardian Station's shields in a spectacular display of light. And energy, the shields held without even flickering. The Valthic weapons might as well have been throwing rocks at a mountain. 300 years ago, humanity had built these shields to withstand weapons that could crack moons. Modern Valthic technology was dangerous to modern ships, but laughably weak. Against technology from humanity's desperate war, Taiwan waited 5 seconds, allowing the Valthic fleet to expend their initial salvo. Then the station began firing back. The mass compression lance that had destroyed Jiwan's ship was just one of many weapons in the station's arsenal. Now Taiwan activated systems that had been sleeping for centuries. Weapons with names like gravitational shear projectors, quantum disruptor missiles, and temporal distortion beams. The first dreadnought died when space itself folded around it. The gravitational shear projector bent space-time into impossible angles, crushing the massive ship into a twisted sculpture of metal and flesh. The death was instant and absolute. 3,000 Valthic crew members ceased to exist in less than a second. Quantum missiles launched from the station, each existing in multiple probable states simultaneously. Valthic defensive systems could not track them because the missiles were in many places at once until the moment they struck. Cruisers and destroyers exploded as the quantum. Weapons phased directly through their shields and detonated. Inside their hulls, The temporal distortion beam was perhaps the cruelest weapon. It accelerated time locally around its target, causing ships to age centuries in seconds. Hulls corroded and collapsed. Systems failed from extreme degradation, and crew members died of old age before they could understand what was happening. A destroyer targeted by this beam simply fell apart into rust and dust. Scattering across space like ancient ruins, High Admiral Yunho watched his fleet being systematically destroyed and felt his certainty collapse into horror. This was not a battle. This was an execution. His ships were dying faster than his tactical officers could count them. The dreadnoughts, which should have been able to survive anything, were being eliminated with single shots. Nothing his fleet did made any difference.
All ships.
Evasive maneuvers. Break formation. Yunho shouted, abandoning all thoughts of victory. Now he only wanted to save as many ships as possible. Retreat to hyperspace range. But Taiwan had calculated their retreat vectors. The AI fired precisely, targeting engines and navigation systems. Ships trying to flee found themselves crippled, drifting helplessly as the station continued its methodical assault. Fighter craft were swept from space by wide-angle energy pulses. Carriers exploded when their fuel reserves were ignited by targeted strikes. The second dreadnought managed to fire its main weapon, a devastating plasma cannon that required 5 minutes to charge and could destroy a city. The blast struck the Guardian Station's shields and dissipated like rain hitting bedrock. Taiwan responded by firing 3 mass compression lances simultaneously. The dreadnought compressed into a sphere of dense matter barely 10 meters across, then collapsed further into a miniature black hole that existed for a fraction of a second, before evaporating in a burst of radiation. Inside the control center, Commander Hian-woo and his soldiers watched the slaughter through the windows. Ensign Myra had stopped trying to escape and simply sat on the floor, staring at the displays showing ship after ship being destroyed. She was crying quietly, understanding that friends and colleagues were dying out there. Hyun-woo continued reading through the historical files, trying to understand what humanity had been before the silence. He found technical documents about the weapons being used against his fleet. Each weapon system had required years of research and enormous resources to develop. Humanity had pushed the boundaries of physics itself, creating technology that seemed almost like magic compared to modern standards. He found personal files, too. Messages and photos from the human crew that had operated this station. They were people like any others, with families and hopes and fears. They had not wanted to fight, but had done so anyway to protect their homes. Hyunwoo felt a strange respect growing for these long-dead humans. They had faced extinction and responded by creating miracles. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted only 12 minutes. When it ended, 38 of the 43 Valthic warships were destroyed or crippled beyond repair. Only 5 ships remained intact enough to flee, including Jiwon's flagship and one of the surviving dreadnoughts. High Admiral Yunho was dead, his ship among the casualties. On a world called New Seoul, 15 light-years from Earth, Jaeon stood in his small apartment looking at the night sky through his window. Something had changed 3 nights ago. Stars that he had never seen before suddenly became visible, bright points of light appearing where there had only been darkness. The elders said it was impossible, but Jaegyun's eyes did not lie. The sky was different. He was 24 years old, born on this hidden colony that his ancestors had built generations ago. New Seoul was a beautiful world with green forests and blue oceans, home to 3 million people who lived in peaceful cities connected by fast trains. Everyone knew the history. The story passed down through families. Humanity had hidden itself from a terrible enemy, sleeping behind a protective field until it was safe to emerge. But the emergence was supposed to happen within decades, not centuries. Jaeon worked as a maintenance technician at the spaceport, keeping the old ships ready even though they never flew. His grandfather had done the same job, and his great-grandfather before that. It was tradition, keeping the machines functional for the day humanity would need them again. Most people thought it was silly, maintaining ships that would probably never work. But Jaeon found satisfaction in the work, connecting him to the past and the war his ancestors had fought 3 nights ago. At the same moment the new stars appeared, every ship in the spaceport had activated simultaneously. Alarms had blared, engines had powered up, and computer systems had started running pre-flight checks. The emergency protocols from 3 centuries ago were finally executing. Jahan and his colleagues had worked frantically to understand what was happening, reading manuals that nobody had looked at in generations. Now, as he watched the night sky, he saw something else impossible. Lights moving between the stars, hundreds of them, ships launching from hidden berths and heading toward space, new Sol's defense platforms, ancient weapons built during the war and left dormant behind the protective field were coming online. The entire planet was waking up from a very long sleep. His communication device buzzed with an emergency message. All citizens were instructed to remain calm and await announcements from the Unified Council. Jahan laughed quietly at that instruction. How could anyone remain calm when the world was obviously changing in dramatic ways? On Earth itself, in the underground chambers where humanity's government had waited out the centuries, Elder Kyungmi stood before a wall of displays showing information from across the solar system. She was 90 years old, born during the silence, raised on stories of the world before and taught to be ready for the day of emergence. That day had finally arrived. The exotic matter array that had powered the dampening field for 3 centuries had shut down 18 hours ago. Nobody understood exactly why, though the scientists suspected it had simply exhausted itself years ahead of projections. The important thing was that the silence was ended. Earth and all the hidden colonies were visible again to the rest of the galaxy. Kyungmi had spent her entire life preparing for this moment. As the head of the Unified Council, it was her responsibility to guide humanity through the emergence. Around her, other council members worked frantically, coordinating with colonies, organizing the military, and trying to understand the current state of galactic civilization. They had been hidden so long that they knew nothing about what had happened in the wider universe. Then Taiwan's signal arrived, and everything changed. The message was clear and concerning. One of the Guardian stations had been attacked by an alien force. The station had defended itself and was requesting immediate support. Hostile forces were in human space, possibly descendants of the ancient enemy. Kyungmi read the report and made her decision quickly. Earth had been preparing for this possibility for 300 years. Every generation had maintained the military, improved the technology, and trained soldiers for the day when humanity would need to defend itself again. The time had come. "Send the order," she said to her communications officer. "Wake the fleets. Activate all defense platforms. Begin the emergence protocol." Humanity returns to the stars today. Across Earth's solar system, massive ships began powering up from hidden berths. These were not the desperate vessels built during the war, but new designs refined over centuries of development. Humanity had not been idle during the silence. They had studied, improved, and prepared. The ships emerging now were larger and more advanced than anything that had existed before the hiding. The flagship of Earth's first fleet was a dreadnought named Salmon, built to honor the admiral who had saved humanity with her desperate gambit. The ship was 3 times larger than any Valthic dreadnought, powered by revolutionary reactors that made the old warrior technology look primitive. Its weapons were refined versions of the devastating systems installed on the Guardian stations. Improved by 3 centuries of research, Captain Borum commanded the Salmon, a position she had trained for her entire life, even though she never expected to actually use those skills. She was 50 years old, gray-haired and serious, descended from a long line of military officers. Her great-great-grandmother had served under Admiral Soman during the war. Now she would carry on that legacy. "All systems are green," her executive officer reported. "The ship is ready to launch." "Take us out," Borum ordered, feeling her heart pound with excitement and fear. "Plot a course for Guardian Platform Taiwan. Maximum speed. Humanity has been silent long enough." The Salmon rose from its hidden dock beneath the lunar surface and accelerated toward the edge of the solar system. Behind it, 30 more warships followed, along with support vessels and supply ships. Earth's first fleet was going to war, or at least going to investigate why one of their Guardian stations had fired weapons for the first. Time and centuries. At the Guardian Station, Taiwan detected the approaching human fleet long before they arrived. The AI felt something close to satisfaction, though it did not truly experience emotion. Its signal had been received. Humanity had responded. After 317 years of solitude, Taiwan would finally speak again with its creators. Commander. Hyunwoo had spent 5 days studying human history and culture. He read everything the unlocked files contained, learning about Earth's nations and conflicts, their art and science, their hopes and dreams. The humans had been a complicated species, capable of great violence and great compassion. They had fought terrible wars among themselves, but had united instantly when faced with external threat. He shared what he learned with his soldiers, and slowly they began to understand. The Valthic Empire had made a terrible mistake coming here. This was not empty space waiting to be claimed. This was a territory protected by weapons beyond understanding and defended by a species that had chosen survival at any cost. When the human fleet arrived, Taiwan opened a communication channel immediately. Guardian platformed Taiwan to approaching human vessels. Identity confirmed. Welcome home. Captain Borum felt tears in her eyes hearing those words. 3 centuries ago, humanity had gone to sleep, hoping to wake again. Now they had, and the station left to guard them was still faithful to its duty. This is Captain Borum of the EDS Salmon, Earth's First Fleet. We received your signal, Taiwan. Report status. Platform operating at 78% capacity. Hostile alien force engaged and neutralized. Alien prisoners taken for questioning. Human space is secure. Taiwan paused briefly. It is good to speak with humans again. Borum smiled at that. The AI had learned to express something like emotion during its long wait. We're coming aboard, Taiwan. Let's get you properly repaired and updated. You've done excellent work. The human ships docked with the Guardian Station, and crew members spread through its corridors for the first time in 3 centuries. Engineers assessed damage and began repairs. Technicians updated Taiwan's systems with new information about modern humanity, and military officers came to the control center to meet the Valthic prisoners. Commander, Hyunwoo, stood when the humans entered, trying to appear respectful and non-threatening. Captain Borum studied him carefully, noting his Valthic features, but also recognizing intelligence in his eyes. This one had spent days learning about humanity instead of trying to escape. That spoke well of him. I am Commander Hyunwoo of the Valthic Empire, said carefully. In rough human language he had learned from the station's computers. I apologize for violating your space. We did not know humans still existed. Please do not kill my soldiers. They were following my orders. Borum considered this. Taiwan tells me you ordered your fleet to retreat, saving many lives. That shows good judgment. You also chose to learn about us, rather than remain ignorant. That shows wisdom. She made her decision. You will not be executed. Instead, you will serve as our ambassador to the Valthic Empire. You will carry a message from humanity to your people. Yunhua felt relief wash through him. I will serve however you ask. What is the message? That humanity has returned. That we claim sovereignty over our territory. That any species who respects our borders will be treated as friends, but any who threaten us will face the same fate as your fleets. Borum's voice was firm, but not cruel. We do not seek war, but we will not tolerate aggression.